Mr. Chair. Steve Putnam, Vice Chair. Present. Mark Little,
Present.
Mr. Fearful. Mr. Gregg,
Present.
Davy Donaldson,
Present.
Jenny Gibb,
Morning, everyone.
Christine Henry. Or Stephen Close. Maggie Hepburn. Susan McFarlane. Bill Mackey,
Yes, present.
Simon McLeod. Susan. Paul Mitchell,
Present.
Alison Murray. Jim Simpson.
And we have apologies from Professor Batty, June Brown, Jim Curry, Caroline Howard and Emma King. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Emma. So, yeah, a few things to say just at the outset. First of all, welcome to Hussein in his first meeting as vice chair. Not his first meeting, but first meeting as vice chair. You'll see, or you have seen in the chief officer report, that Alan Chalmers has stood down as our user rep. So I'd just like to thank Alan for all his contributions over the years, and to flag up that we have now started the process to recruit a replacement. In terms of the way we're going to run the meeting, as you know, we're very keen on taking regular breaks. We have been taking regular breaks after 2 hours, but we had a wee chat at the Culture Sounding Board and decided that 90 minutes was a better thing to do, because when you're getting to 2 hours, you start to get a bit tired and you're not really concentrating. So if any of our staff are watching or listening, do take regular breaks. We are doing it partly to set an example. You need to take regular breaks to keep your energy levels up. So please do that. You'll see on the agenda, we have item 5.1, which is to do with the recruitment of a new chief officer, because Sandra is leaving us for pastures new. She's going off to be Deputy Chief Exec of NHS Tayside. I'd like to take the opportunity to put on record my thanks to Sandra for all her hard work over the years. I've really enjoyed working with her. I think it occurs to me that being Chief Officer of an IJB is a tough gig at the best of times. And when you've got the backdrop of COVID, it's even tougher. And I think, you know, while we're not perfect on quite a lot of measures, we stack up pretty well against IJBs across Scotland as a whole. So that's testament to Sandra. The other thing that occurs to me is that when you look at the qualities of leadership, bad leaders surround themselves with yes men, people who won't challenge, people who won't steal any of their limelight. I think we've got an absolutely excellent senior leadership team in whom I've got great confidence, and that'll stand us in good stead when Sandra goes. And I think the fact that we've got a good leadership team, a very good leadership team, speaks to Sandra's leadership style. So Sandra, thanks for all your help. Best of luck in Tayside. Don't forget us. If you find anything in Tayside that they're doing well and we could be copying, please do let us know. And yeah, thanks and good luck.
Thank you.
Right, so moving on to the agenda. Do we have any declarations of interest or transparency statements? Not seeing any hands. Take that as a no. In terms of determination of exempt business, are we content to take item 8.1, which is the confidential appendix on the vaccination centre? We're happy to take that in private.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Right, so that takes us on to our usual video presentation, which this time is on recruitment. So I will hand over to Sandy to do the intro for this bit.
Thank you, John. I'm just going to give a few remarks and that allows Ross time to just get everything ready. So really, just to let you know what you're about to see, that you're about to see the first in a series that we've produced and will be producing to promote Aberdeen Partnership and Aberdeen as the best place to work in Scotland and indeed the UK. That's kind of what we're about. It was filmed in early November by our partners Shmoo. They've done a fantastic job in doing that. Some of the footage was at our inaugural recruitment event in early November. The rest of the footage was done in some of our sites across the city. And it shows, and you'll hear from a range of our colleagues in the Health and Social Care Partnership, highlighting the work they do and why they're encouraging us to join the partnership. We will be planning a series of videos beyond today. Obviously want to get feedback to inform that, particularly producing shorter videos for social media applicability. I think the second last thing I want to say would really to thank the people who really made the video happen, which wasn't me. So I really want to thank Behind Me Press, did a fantastic job driving us to the point of the video. Stuart Lamberton, who may or may not be on the call remotely. Thank you, Stuart. Rachel Donald, who did a lot of work setting up the visits, particularly here and staff to speak to, and particularly our colleagues in Shmoo, who did a great job and kind of brought everything together. So really, I'm now going to kind of hand over to Rose in a second, and we'll look forward to any feedback, John, that you or the IGB members wish to give us after seeing it. It's about 3.5 minutes, so it's not too long. Thank you, Rose. Push the button.
Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership. Who are we? What do we do? How do we do it? We are a caring partnership working in and with our communities to enable all people to achieve fulfilling, healthy lives. A lot of people perhaps in Aberdeen City don't know about all the services and all the organisations and the jobs that are on offer across the partnership.
We've got a lot of work with people in the council, we've got a lot of work with people in NHS Grampian, and the partnership's right in the middle of that, and as I say, it's in the best of both worlds.
Would you like to come and work for the Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership? Check out what our staff say about working in the partnership.
Everybody working within the partnership has got the same goal. We're all in it because we want to help and support people. We're all in the partnership because we are in cares where you are caring for people.
Partnership's great. Every day is different. You learn something new every day. You work with some fantastically experienced people. Everybody gives you help whenever you need it. There's guidance always there. And you see it as a chance to make a career out of this, which is why I want to do the degree, why I want to progress, why I want to learn more, and why I want to work with people from different backgrounds and habits.
Come and see us. Come and see what goes on. Ask a question, phone us up. Come and see if you can come and see us just for a day. We're happy to do that. But if you are working within a partnership, it's a really good forum. It's a really good career base.
Working for the partnership gives you so many options in terms of your career development. You can start off in one role, the opportunities to develop that role throughout your career. Working for the public sector in general is it's very stable work compared to other sectors. Good holidays, good pension offers, etc. So I think the whole package is really good, especially if you want to develop your career.
We are trying to attract different people into the sector. So youngsters, for example. So by using a more tech focus, trying to get people in to deliver care and support differently. But we need to be on the front foot and make sure that our services run as smoothly and as efficiently as possible.
I think the reason for applying for Aberdeen Health and Social Care Partnership as a new graduate or as anyone is because it's a good organisation to work for. It's got patient-centred care at its kind of core. It's got some great values that it wants to adhere to make health and social care accessible to the many, not just to the few. And I think it's got staff well-being. It's got a good kind of culture in the organisation as well.
All one big family, all striving to do the same thing. It is very beneficial, very rewarding. You enjoy meeting people, enjoying helping people. This is the place to be.
Do you want a fulfilling career where you can provide support and assistance in various ways every single day to the people across Aberdeen City? You want a competitive package and security in what are very difficult times for the cost of living? You want opportunities to learn, grow, and expand your professional knowledge and expertise alongside like-minded people? Do you want to be part of a team that really makes a difference? Then we want to recruit you. Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership, a caring partnership.
Thanks, that was really good. Any?
That's a bonus, a bonus episode.
Hearing voices. Any comments or questions? Yeah, Suzanne?
Yeah, no, I think I just agree, John, with what you said. I think it covered a lot of the issues that prospective recruits would want to know about. It's, what do we do? I thought it was set out really well with all those questions there at the start, and then hearing from a wide range of prospective and current members to have to then answer those questions. And I think if the follow-up series of videos is anything like the quality we've seen today, that will be a really good advert for our partnership, and hopefully it will yield results in the folk that want to come and work here.
Yeah, here. Anyone else want to come in?
Yes.
Martin?
Yep. Thank you, Chair. I thought that was a really excellent presentation. It showcased the organisation in a very positive but also realistic way. I mean, I was just wondering what sort of audience or reach is this presentation going to go out to, just to get an understanding of what, what's going to be the function, the use of the film, just to get an idea of that would be useful.
Grace?
Video initially is just our wide range, kind of, this is a partnership in a nutshell type thing. So we have access to our YouTube site that Ross has just kind of presented it on there. What we want to do is kind of take that clip and actually reduce it down again. So we've got then social media reach, which would be about a minute's video from what we've taken from there, and then do we actually had over, I think it was 2 to 3 hours of footage that we did over the past month or so. So we've actually got so much other bits and pieces that we want to kind of make sure that we do a bit more targeted round about our AHP services, round about our social care services, and make sure we can do more promotion round about there. So it will be our social media reach and speaking to our universities and universities and schools and sending the videos around there. So very much embedded in the workforce plan and the work streams that we're working with at the moment.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I mean, one thought I had is that anyone who is thinking of a career here might, if they're investigating what is the IJB, they might go to YouTube and look for a video or some information. So it could be a very good kind of introductory film to give just that access to some basic information about what the organization's like. So thanks for that. Thank you.
Any more comments, questions? I don't see any hands. Okay, but yeah, no, thanks for that. I think it's really good, and good to hear what we're going to be doing in terms of getting it out there. So that was really excellent. And I like the fact that we featured the recruitment fair, which by all accounts was a great success. Was it 100 applications that resulted from that?
So yeah, so of course back from some of the stallholders that we had, so the likes of Concord Care and Woodlands and Barchester were taking applications in the day, and they were receiving over 100 applications that day. And we also had reports back from SRS actually recruited 2 posts from that actual event as well. So we had approximately 300 attendees that day, so definitely an appetite for doing more of that processing.
Thanks for that. That's great. Okay, if no more questions, comments on the video, we'll move on to item 4.2, which is the minute of the board meeting of the 10th of October. I'll just go through that page by page for if anyone's got any questions or comments on accuracy. So page 3, page 4, page 5,
It's gone quiet.
I could hear Councillor Gregg at that point.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear us online?
You stopped for at one point. It went quiet at one point.
Okay,
That's we can hear you now.
fine. So, yeah, were there any questions on the business planner?
No.
Nope, okay. So then we move on to the insights and topics seminars. Do we have any questions, comments on this? And I think we've got Alison online if she wants to say anything in particular. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, thanks, John. I'll come in if that's okay.
Indeed.
Just really to explain to people, they'll be perhaps wondering why we're now talking about IGB insights rather than development sessions. So we had a little bit of a discussion at the Culture Sounding Board around about how the seminars and sessions had been going. We had had 2 of each at that point, and we were thinking that it was a little bit, they hadn't worked quite as well as we had expected. The attendance wasn't great, etc. So we decided to review them a little bit. We're now calling the development sessions, we're calling them IGB Insights, because we're trying to get insight into various aspects of the work of the IGB and the partnership. So we've added to the topics, and we have also decided to make the insight sessions hybrid, so that people have the option to attend either remotely or in person. So hopefully that will maybe enable more people to come along to these. So the schedule was there with the topics and the dates, so hopefully folks will have these in their diary, and we'll look forward to seeing you at them. Thank you.
Thanks, Alison. And I think I'm right in saying that the last one we had, which was on mental health and population health, that one was hybrid, but the feedback we got from the folk who were online was that they felt they were able to participate fully in it, so it wasn't a problem. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, well, that then takes us on to the next item, which is 4.5, which is the Chief Officer's report. Sandra, do you want to introduce this one?
Yeah, I will do. Thank you, Chair. So good morning, everyone. You have before you today my Chief Officer's report, which covers a number of issues. I'd like to say a few words by introduction to draw your attention to a few of the matters that have been highlighted. So one is on Storm Babette. Get my names of the name properly. So this Europe-wide violent storm with high winds, as we'll all recall, and extremely heavy and extensive rain, swept across our city and large parts of the northeast and eastern Scotland in October and affected us for several days. Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership are actively responding through this period, working closely with our partners to help protect our citizens and keep them safe. The Senior Manager on Call, or SMOC, as we affectionately know them in our Business and Resilience Manda, attended a series of regular meetings at Aberdeen City Council's Incident Management Team and the Grampian Local Resilience Partnership to help manage our response and our work with other responder agencies and organisations. The main role for the SMOC was to liaise with social work colleagues to check on vulnerable people in the city who had been affected by the extreme weather. The information which we gathered was fed back into the Council's Incident Management Team and meetings, and then the SMOC attended the Local Resilience Partnerships, LRP, to share situational awareness. The biggest risk we had during that time to citizens and vulnerable people in the city was on the 21st of October, when concern was raised that the Cooter Burn could burst its banks in the Millside area of Cooter. SMOC liaised with social work colleagues to identify vulnerable people in the area, and Police Scotland were able to knock on their doors and explain the flooding risk and the actions which might have to be taken. The local Cooter Resilience Group set up a support centre in the village hall. However, in the event no residents needed to evacuate their homes, because the potential flooding subsided. The staff involved in the response to the storm Quebec have shared their views on the response to the incident ahead of the Council and the Local Resilience Partnerships debriefing. But personally, I'd like to extend my thanks to all the staff involved. The extreme weather events are at times of high stress and carefully coordinated actions. Our staff and the staff of other organisations involved responded magnificently, with cool, calm heads and a high level of organisation. Public sector ethos at its very best. Another area I'd like to highlight is our hospital at home. Our team submitted a bid to Scottish Government in August this year, seeking grant funding for just over £6 million to help increase the number of hospital beds from 42 to 100 by 2025. A letter was received on the 3rd of October saying that NHS Grampian will receive just over £2 million, with 500,000 allocated to Aberdeen City. Right, tell me on page, I've lost my place there.
Easily done.
Yeah, it's easily done, yeah. However, the funds will only be recruited, which is a new way of happening. So we have to recruit first before the funds are released. In the past, we would receive the funds and have to recruit. So this time it's the other way around, which is totally understandable given the financial pressures across our system. The service will build upon the frailty pathway and will increase the number of beds from 42 to 45 by November and then build up to a further 60 beds through 24-25. We'll also increase the disability plan pathway and to increase that from 5 beds to 10 and by 20 in 24-25, and a further 20 beds to include acute medicine and paediatrics are being considered for 24-25. This bid will also include more than 500k for the community heart failure team to increase their capacity. In addition, Healthcare Improvement Scotland have advised of over 100,000 Grampian Health Board allocation for a test to change with an assistant practitioner role to serve as team coordinator on a fixed term basis. They've asked us to monitor this. I would like to say that the hospital home has been an investment the IGB made really early on, and it's been something that's been growing and developing, and it's certainly been something that now, as it expands into virtual capacity and the strong connections that our team, particularly our nursing team, are building across the acute services, are really helping to move that and drive that forward to virtual capacity. On the North East Steering Group on Prescribing, we met on the 17th of November, the North East Partnership Steering Group. That's where the chairs and the vice chairs meet with the chief officers across Grampian. The meeting this month focused on the projected increase in prescribing costs. The Q2 financial monitoring update, which we will consider later on today's agenda, shows that costs at Aberdeen City have increased about 20% higher than previous financial years. Aberdeenshire and Moray partnerships, and of course the rest of Scotland, are also projecting significant increases in prescription costs. If these costs continue to rise at the current state, there could be an impact on the partnership's ability to deliver services they currently do. This matter, though, is now being escalated through our Chief Officer and Chief Finance Officer networks at a national level to Scottish Government via Scotland's officer routes. And as I said, in a separate report later in the agenda, we'll be able to discuss this more deeply. We have made good progress in our workforce plan by implementing already several of its elements. We saw earlier at the start of the meeting the impressive and inspiring video from the recruitment fair. It's important to note that the event not only benefited the Health and Social Care Partnership, but from the video you'll have seen a number of partner organisations that were there. And I think that played good credit to saying that given that the majority of our services are commissioned services, it's really important that the partnership understands the importance of all our sector to helping us continue to deliver good services. Another key point about that is on the 30th of October, the Risk Audit and Performance Committee held a workshop on the strategic risks associated with workforce planning, and we were delighted to say that we've reduced that risk. I want to extend heartfelt thanks to the team which organised the fair with the stakeholders and to the volunteers who helped to support it. But what I would like to say finally is the workforce and the culture that was mentioned in the video. I think that's in part to the really strong ethos from both the culture work that's done at an executive and a board level. So just to pass my thanks for that. Happy to get questions.
Excellent. Any questions, comments? Yes.
Thank you. I was wondering if we could have a bit of detail about the hospital at home service, just what's involved there, what services have been provided.
Absolutely. I think we have Fiona Mitchell-Hill on the call. Fiona, could I ask you to come and support that?
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. Hopefully you can hear me. So yeah, as Sandra said, we've been not leading the way in Scotland, but certainly leading the way in Grampian round about our hospital at home service. So this is something that's been set up now for about nearly 4 years. And we get wonderful feedback from our people that are part of the service about getting that because they get care in their own home. So this is absolutely an alternative to hospital admission that we offer. So it's a multi-professional team. It's mainly focused on frailty for the first period of time that we've been up and running, but we've started to expand it wider. As Sandra said about, we've got respiratory beds now, and we're looking at other pathways as well. We've got we can give antibiotics in people's homes. So traditionally people would have come into hospital for care, but actually between the multi-professional team that's around the family, they wrap around that person in their own home to ensure that we do that. So we are slowly seeing an increase in our bed base, which we've been just doing as we've been able to recruit staff, and it includes, so we can have physios, occupational therapists, we've got a consultant team there, as well as advanced nurse practitioners, nurses and healthcare support workers. So they go out and manage people completely in their own home. And as I say, the feedback we get is wonderful. They much prefer it. And actually, we're now starting to see people in hospital asking for that service. Is that sufficient, or would you like some more?
And the only other thing I'm wondering is it literally beds, or is it more patients that are being counted?
So it's the patients that are being, well, so we speak about virtual beds, so we have beds, but it's their own bed. So
Yes.
we don't take them into hospital beds. So it is their bed. So when you know, when we've got 40 beds, or so in that patients will, our length of stay is about a week is our length of stay. So they will stay open to us, and they can get up to 3 visits a day, 3 or 4 visits a day, depending on their personal needs. So we can manage quite a high acuity. So people can be quite unwell, but we manage them in their own home. And actually we find we can manage people with quite significant delirium and such like. So it's actually safer for them to stay in their own home than take them into a strange, noisy, busy hospital ward. We actually keep them in their own environment, which is safer for them, which is really nice to see. And as I say, the feedback's been wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. I think Martin had his hand up first, and then Alison.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment on the hospital beds at home. I understand that it's a very effective service that's provided, but does depend on the flow of carers coming in. So it's clearly making a difference. It's helping a lot of people, but obviously it's quite an intense. It's still, I mean, it sounds like a relatively straightforward option, but it does require intensive capacity and support ongoing. But you know, I know from talking to people and people that I know that it is providing really considerable amounts of professional care to people at home, and that really does give a lot of comfort and ease. I wanted to ask about the Health Improvement Fund. I think this is a very important area of activity. It really does emphasize the prevention side. I mean, there's mention there of quite a list of individual projects, and these will all be centered around the preventative agenda. I think there are 2 listed in the appendix, and they're all really important. In the grand scale of things, the funds for the total funds are relatively modest, and yet around about a third of the bids were not successful. So is there not an opportunity there to try and give additional focus, additional resource towards the Health Improvement Fund? Because that's, I mean, it's great that about 2/3 were successful, but you could do even more with quite a small amount of resource. And really importantly, you're empowering people, in their communities to make a difference there. So any feedback on that would be much appreciated.
Who can take that?
I'm going to ask Jessica to take
So this sounds a little bit like pass the parcel, but I've got Ian Robertson here today, who is very involved in that. So perhaps Ian could come in on that one.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you for your question, Councillor Gregg. Of course, we'd always welcome more funding for the Health Improvement Fund, but I think some of the reasons why particular funding weren't successful is they didn't quite fit the criteria. But what I would want to highlight is that whenever funding didn't quite meet the criteria of the Health Improvement Fund, we tried as far as possible to link it up with other community funds. So ACFO have a community mental health and wellbeing fund. There's a Scottish COVID recovery fund. So we tried our absolute best to maximise the amount of funding that we're getting out to our communities. But as I say, the Health Improvement Fund is really focusing on that health inequalities in the community and adopting that preventative and early intervention approach.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think that it is a resource that really gets to the front line. It really can change people's lives quite considerably, and for the long term, and it is an important way of tackling health inequalities. So thanks for the answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin, and thanks, Ian. And Martin, I completely agree with you on the importance of this. I think it's not dramatic. You wouldn't make a kind of TV serial like Casualty out of it, but it's really important in tackling social isolation, which has a big impact on mental and physical health and well-being. And as Ian said, it's all to do with the prevention, early intervention agenda. So I think it's really good stuff. Alison Murray.
Yes, thank you. There's a couple of points I'd raise. One was about Storm Babbitt and identifying vulnerable people. For an extensive period of time during Storm Babbitt, it was difficult to get into the city, particularly from the south. There were issues around, obviously, the flooding around Brecon and things like that. We have to support carers who come in from outside Aberdeen for caring for people within Aberdeen. And a lot of those are caring for people who are not known to any services. I was just wondering what was made available, to let people know who to alert if they had caring responsibilities they were unable to access, if they couldn't get into the city due to the weather. I have another point, but I don't know if I want to address that one first and then come up to my other issue.
Martin.
Can't hear.
Yeah, thanks for the question and through you, Chair. I suppose that the governance structures that were in place around Storm Babbitt, so talking about the Grampian Local Resilience Partnership and how the Aberdeen City Health Social Care Partnership fed into that, allowed those kind of escalations to take place. So I think specifically there was the availability of what's called COTAG, which is a 4x4 voluntary group who have access to 4x4 vehicles. They were certainly used to escort staff who were struggling to get through the weather over that weekend. So that was an available resource for that situation, I would say. And we were feeding that information through the government structures up to the local resilience partnership, who were then, I suppose, looking at how they could coordinate that kind of resource across the country.
Yes, it was more about communication for people who aren't currently accessing services to know who to contact if somebody they're caring for on a regular basis, they're unable to make it there.
So I suppose in relation to that, there's progress around what's called the Person at Risk database, which at the moment in Storm Babbitt we were really just using the information around clients who we knew about. But the development of the Person at Risk database is looking at that kind of multi kind of layers, I suppose, around trying to include as many people who may have vulnerabilities in the community. So I think that is certainly something we're working on, and we'll continue to work on both at a Grampian level and a local level.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that sounds helpful. My other point was different, so I wanted to address it separately, is the service user representative. I think we need to say thank you for Alan for having volunteered before, but it's right if he can't attend that he step down, as he hasn't been able to attend for a year. I am concerned, however, this is meant to be a representative of service users, and I'm rather concerned at the rather opaque way we seem to be about recruiting someone, of approaching people and asking if they're interested. I think as a representatives, our roles need to be, how we're recruited to the board needs to be very transparent, and anybody needs to have the opportunity to put themselves forward for that. So I'm very uncomfortable about the idea that it's the board is selecting people who might be chosen to represent us, because obviously there are question marks over the representativeness of somebody who's been selected by officers. I know that's often the best way of getting people who are actually interested, because it is quite a commitment, but it does need to be open up to anybody who wants to apply, and is it being advertised so that other people can apply to be a user representative?
Is that one for Alison?
Yes, it is, John. Thank you. So officers aren't selecting the service user. What we're doing is we're going round all of our service user groups and talking about the opportunity, what it involves, time-wise, etc. If you recall that it's exactly or very similar to what we did when we recruited the carers representatives. You know, we need to sort of warm people up and ensure that they understand what's involved. So that's why, partly why the process is taking a fair amount of time, because there's a lot of groups to get around. So we're going around speaking to people and letting them know that the post, if you like, is available, what's involved, and asking people to consider putting themselves forward. And once we get names of people who have come forward, if we've got more than one, then we'll go through exactly the same process as we did with the carers reps, and that's a very informal chat with the chair of the IJB and the chief officer of the partnership. So it will be that at that point that any selection is done.
Yes, I hope it's not exactly the same process, because it took so long. I eventually wrote and said, let me know if you're interested in me, or I will just go and find something else to do. It took about 6 months, so I hope it doesn't take quite as long as that. Yes, it's still, I feel it should be something which is open to anybody. It should still be advertised as something that's open to anybody. It shouldn't rely on people who are already engaged in the service, in groups. And I do think it should be made available for anybody who wants to be interested to put themselves forward, not just those who are already involved.
Alison, could we put something on the website? Does it kind of widen it out?
Yep, we could look to do that. It's the website doesn't tend to get a lot of hits from service users, from the public, but yep, that's one way that's one other way we could try to encourage folks to come forward.
Thank you.
Anything further? Not seeing any hands. Okay, so can we note the report? Approve. Thanks, folks. All right, that moves us on to item 5.1, which is recruitment and selection process for the chief officer. I'll hand over to Leslie.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report sets out the proposed approach to the recruitment and selection of chief officer, together with an indicative timeline. The recommendations of the report are set out at section 2.1, and if I could just add, At 2.1E, it asks about the IGB to agree the appointment of the chief officer through the appointment panel, which would be a temporary committee of the IGB. And today, I wonder if we could just add that standing orders require that the IGB appoint a chair for each committee it establishes. So to ask the IGB to appoint a chair from the panel composition as set out. So that would either be the chair of the risk audit and performance committee, or the chair of the clinical and care governance committee. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And as I understand it, neither Hussein nor I are eligible for that role, so it has to be.
That's right,
another.
that's set
Yeah.
out in the standing orders as well. Sorry, I should have said that.
Okay. Do we have any volunteers for that post?
Either Martin or I, isn't it really? Yeah. I'm happy if Martin wishes to chair. That was a good deflection.
Martin, what do you think?
Yeah, if I can help in any way, yeah.
Thank you. I think that's being stitched up, but there we are.
Beautifully agreed, Martin.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions on the report?
Sorry, Chairman, just one comment with regards to the interim portfolio lead for Musk. That's now not being part of the chief's officer's role. Is that correct?
Who can take that one? I think the Musk rule was. Oh. Adam?
Yeah, hi, and sorry I'm late to the meeting. I clearly come in just at a critical moment. So the current arrangement with Sandra was, I guess, slightly unique in its opportunity with Sandra's experience to be able to do both together. In discussion with Angela, we were both very sure that actually someone stepping into that role, that was probably setting someone up not to do very well on the huge expanse of the role in the initial part. So we're separating the role again to the original part, so the Musk part isn't in it, and we're going to, or I will, because it will be back just in the NHS, not in the bit, put in place an arrangement for the Musk bit, and definitely very keen to sort of leave that door open for future about how in the future that would be possible to do that. I've seen huge benefit from the role covering both in the hospital and in the community part together. So there's definitely an arrangement for as Sandra leaves to cover Musk, and then we'll continue to explore if there's an opportunity to bring them together again in the future. Thank you.
I think that's a reasonable adjustment. I think too much to take on both of those roles at the first time. I think Andrew, I'm sure, will agree. Thank you.
Okay, anything further? Not seeing any hands. So can we approve the recommendations subject to adding Martin to be chair of the appointment panel?
I think that was agreed. Yeah.
Yep. Great, thank you. Right, moving on. 6.1 is the Chief Social Work Officer Annual Report. So who is going to be introducing this one?
Thank you, John.
Chair
Amateur. So it's my privilege to share with members of the board the annual report for the Chief Social Work Officer for Aberdeen City. I say privilege because this work, the report really reflects the work of the entire social work workforce across the Health and Social Care Partnership and indeed the Council, delivering services to those at risk and vulnerable across our city. It sets out in high level terms the activity of our profession across the city, and I'm happy to acknowledge the efforts that all have been made. This year has seen the continuing impact of COVID continuing to have an impact on demand for social work services. In addition to that, the impact of the cost of living and the wider fiscal challenges have also continue to have impact on social work deliveries as well. As you can see, all of this activity aligns very well to the strategic plans, the Children's Services Plan and the Health and Social Care Partnership Strategic Delivery Plan as well. And so it's there. There is some really areas within the report that highlights really strong performance, but also recognising there are areas where we will need to continue to improve our services as well. And there. So this report is submitted along with every other council to the Scottish Government, and they will then provide a Scottish report setting out the totality of social work activity for the country early in 2024. I'm happy to pause there, Chair, and answer any questions that members may have of the report.
Thanks. Any comments, questions? Martin.
Yeah, thank you. A really excellent, comprehensive, high quality report. Thank you. One thing that jumped out at me, we've been talking about retention and recruitment quite a bit recently. I'm on page 77, or it's page 25 of the report. There's mention of some initiatives for recruitment and training. So there's the Grow Your Own, there's student placements. These would appear to be really quite important opportunities to bring fresh talent in. And I'm just wondering if there is scope for more of this kind of initiative of offering, well, attracting and offering tailored courses and pathways and so forth.
Thank you, Chair, and Councillor, thank you for your question. I think that your question very much linked very well to the video we had at the start of this morning's meeting, and recognising that actually there is no single route into social work, that actually many who will go on and develop a career in social care may often transfer into social work at a subsequent point in time, and we need to find ways of making that transition as easy for them as possible. We continue to have conversations with Robert Gordon's University, the largest social work school in Scotland, how we can make that opportunity possible for individuals who are doing that as well. Recognising that actually the social work is a demanding job, we know that, our staff tell us that, and as well as thinking about ways of them entering into the service, we also need to think of ways in which we keep them in the service, looking after their well-being, their welfare, through effective support, both at a professional and indeed personal level as well, how we support them to deal with build the resilience that actually enables them to sustain a career in social work. So I think the bullet points on page 76 and 77 are only capturing some of the activity that we are doing across the council and the Health and Social Care Partnership to try and ensure that we have a workforce that is of the size and of the calibre we need going forward. That is a continuing and ongoing challenge that we work together on.
Okay. But thank you very much for that response. I think it is an area that's worth any further focus that's possible. There's mention over the page of CPD opportunities, and that includes not just modularized career progression and differentiating your training options, but there's also some of that support for, to help with staff mental health and well-being. I think if there's any opportunity for increasing these kinds of options, I think that would be very welcome, and certainly a very positive way to support staff and to retain them, if we could do anything further in that direction. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Alison Murray.
Hi, yes, thank you. There was just a couple of points. They sort of link together, but I noticed there was an increase in the number of children with additional support needs who are referred to the service when families are in crisis. Now I know through some of the work I do that we see a lot of children who are just below that barrier, below that level, and who are really struggling. And it does seem to be a problem with the supports for those families that they end up getting into crisis. And I was wondering what work's being done for those families who are below the point of crisis but are heading rapidly in that direction, because we do see, particularly as I say, children with autism who are falling out of school, who are just not finding school somewhere they can manage. And that sort of links again with including with transition, again, children who are just below that cusp of being in crisis and therefore able to access social work services are often sort of falling through the gaps there. And I was wondering what's there to ensure that those children don't get into crisis and those families don't get into crisis, because there does seem to be a lot of children who are families who are really sort of struggling and might not be considered in crisis, but they are really struggling. That's one point, and I'll come back to the others after that one.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mrs. Murray, for your question. Would acknowledge your reflections. I think that the Health and Social Care Partnership under Council, through its and involvement together through the Children's Services Plan, are really focused on delivering preventative support to families. There is a range of services that exist that sit below social work entry, and those are both accessible through self-referral or indeed through being referred by an agency of service. I'm making reference to the likes of the Fit Like service and others across our city which deliver support, really high quality support to families there. There is always more we can do, I would acknowledge that. Aberdeen City is pleased to be part of a Pathfinder as part of the neurodevelopment activity, and there is work going on across a number of schools and thinking about how we provide early support to families where there is a neurodevelopmental diagnosis or indeed concern that there may be such a diagnosis forthcoming. And so again, it is for me clear that actually that early support is what we want to give families both the information that they require to understand their child's needs, but also to support them adapt parenting and support their parenting to meet the needs of that specific child, as well as having other community supports available that they can access around that as well. Working with the Association for Real Change, both the Health and Social Care Partnership and Children's Social Work are working together to try and improve the quality of transition planning for our young people, recognising that is an area where we would want to do more and do better. And so really working with them, this national organisation, to try and embed the principles of good transition is absolutely fundamental to work both across children's and indeed adult services.
Thank you. That's good to hear, particularly the work that's ongoing. Yes, I think some services are not always as easy to access as we would like. I know people who've waited months before accessing Fit Like, getting support from Fit Like. So it is. I think it's something we do need to keep an eye on and keep on top of to make sure it is meeting the needs. There was two other points which were rather sort of less involved, as it were. One was I noticed we have an Aberdeen Young Person's Rights Service, which provides an independent service guidance. I was wondering how independent that is. If a young person wanted to take the city to tribunal, could they do so, or would that have to go via something else like the My Rights, My Say service? And the other point was a more general one, which I'll just make now because it's a more general one, and that's actually with care at home. Actually, it was a different topic. I know other areas in the Carers Collaborative express concern about difficulty getting home visits, and that's for all sorts of services, including things like dentists and opticians and GPs. And the need to bear in mind that when we are doing care at home, it pushes up the needs for home visits for certain populations. So one was just about the rights service and the other was just a comment on home visits.
Thank you, Chair, and again, thank you for your question. The Right Service is as independent as we possibly can make it. It's still part of structures that I oversee, but nonetheless, yes, they would take instruction from a young person if they wanted to take raise an action against the council. That is something they could advise and support the young person on the steps required to do that as well. You know, and so it's about providing that advice. Clearly, you know, we would want to work with services to avoid that if we possibly can, but nonetheless, if that is the intention of the young person, then that's what they would absolutely do. In relation to your second question, I'm probably less well placed to respond to that, and you know, but I'm happy to take that away and look further at that and provide a response to you regarding the at-home support services regarding dentistry, opticians, and likewise. I'm not sure I'm best placed to answer that.
No, I appreciate that. It was more a general point that I think that had been raised, as I say, by the Carers Collaborative about the difficulty that carers often have in getting home visits for themselves or for their person they care for. So I think it's more something more generally for we as a partnership need to consider when we're doing care at home. Thank you.
Thanks, Alison. Any more hands?
Thanks very much. And just going back to the quality assurance, I'm very pleased to see that within the report. So the significant learning reviews, obviously you highlighted bring anxiety to those that are involved in your workforce, obviously the support. So what mechanisms do you have for support for your workforce when they go through what can be very challenging times for them individuals? Please, thanks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question. Yes, I would recognise that the point you're making. For me, it is about being open, and it's about really ensuring a focus on learning around that, and that is a cultural shift. We continue to try and ensure that staff are aware this is about learning and learning together. One of the ways we do that is ensuring that actually once the learning has been pulled together through a learning review, the first people that hear about the learning is those who are wrapped around the individual or the family, to ensure that they are actually hearing firsthand and actually have also an input shaping that learning as well. So it's a continuous process of refinement of which the staff around the young person, the adult, or indeed the family are contributing to that as well. And then also ensuring that actually what we're doing is sharing that learning through easy to access briefings. Around 7-minute briefing is often a format that we would use to share that learning. And again, ensuring that those around the individual, the child, the family are seeing that first, rather than sharing it with the wider workforce. We can never take away the entirety of the anxiety that often accompanies a learning review, but being open and transparent around what we're absolutely doing and striving to achieve, I think, goes significantly to alleviating some of those concerns.
Thanks, Mark. Any more questions, comments? Not seeing any more hands. Yeah.
Thank you. Page 60, right in the middle, there's a paragraph about the number of infants, children, and young people who are being looked after. And I was just wondering about the work, it mentions that work's being done to support more children and families to remain together. And I was wondering if we could have a bit more information about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a number of areas, some that sits within the health system and some that sits within the social work system. So working very closely with Fiona Mitchell Hill and her team of health visitors and school nurses, and indeed others around that. There's a number of change activities. One is the recent expansion of the Family Nurse Partnership to extend their remit to include support to care experienced young parents who are expecting a child for the first time, to include those. The parents the children of parents who are care experienced are disproportionately represented within the numbers of children in our care system. And so how can we actually better prepare those individuals, those young adults, for parenthood is really, really important as well. It's about seeing family in its widest context. It's about seeing kin as a really important aspect to supporting parents and indeed care for children where parents are unable to do so. So those are really much the areas of focus that we're seeing quite significant shifts as they're always more we can do, and that's something that is continued to be a focus and is a feature within the Children's Services Plan and the LOI as well.
Thank you.
Any more? No? Okay, thanks. In which case, the recommendations on page 47, which is simply to note the report. Are we content to do that? Okay, thank you very much. That brings us on to 6.2, which is the Q2 financial update. So I will hand over to Paul.
Yeah. This paper summarises the budget performance for the quarter ended 30th of September 23 and the forecasted position to the 31st of March 24. So based on the spent in September, it's forecast that the IJB will be reporting an over budget position of 5.4 million, and SLT members are constantly reviewing this position. In the event that IJB remains in an overspend position at the year end, the committee is being asked to approve the use of reserves to balance the final year end figure. So this will result in the IJB not requiring to request any additional funding from NHSG or Aberdeen City Council. And if you have any questions at this point, I'll try my best to answer them.
Any questions, comments? Martin.
Yeah, thanks for that. The 5.4 million overspend is obviously considerable, and the major part of that is overspend on prescribing. So we've got a solution. But how sustainable? If I mean the prescription budget is to some extent beyond our control. So how sustainable is it moving forward year on year using reserves? What are the alternatives if we're trying to be responsible in planning for the future of our budget situation?
Going forward, every January there's a report comes out from the NHS about the level of prescriptions that are forecast for the next year. So we're working on the assumption that they will require a budget increase for next year. So when we're doing our MTFF just now, we're building that in. So we've gone, initially we're thinking it's going to be around about a £4 million increase for next year. So we're building up our MTFF for that, building in, coming up with ideas on how to balance the budget. But we can't really go on overspending and using the or allocating reserves to use it up because they're a finite resource. But in the meantime, the medicine management unit they're looking at ways to reduce reduce the pressures. So they're going to wait to revamp a previous campaign, poster campaign, looking at reducing the wastage, the order limits. Basically, what they're saying is, if you stop using the medicine, it's okay to tell your GP that you've stopped, so that prescriptions can then be amended. Don't stockpile, stuff like that. And so we're trying to reduce the wastage with that. They're also switching from name brands to generic brands, so they've got this switch, doing that. And also the prescribers are going through all the data just now, looking at what they're actually prescribing and is it worth the money to prescribe, like paracetamol, say for instance, you're 16p, or is it worth prescribing? So they're going through all that just now. So we're also getting monthly figures from the forecast now, and October did have a wee positive swing. So we're hoping by the end of the year there might be a wee bit more.
Okay, thank you very much for that. There may be a misperception out there that drugs are free, and obviously they're not. So all of those efforts to tackle the wastage, that is really important, and highlighting to people that they need to monitor their prescriptions. I think that's very important. So it's good to hear. I mean, the amount is quite eye-watering. So these efforts to monitor are really good to see. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Fraser, do you want to come in?
Yeah, it was just to add to what Paul was saying. So what Paul set out there was a number of initiatives that are underway to try and mitigate the cost of prescribing in the city, both in year and also looking at trying to mitigate the cost for next year. But we've got a strategic plan for 2022 to 2025. And as you're aware, we've got a delivery plan that goes alongside that. We review that delivery plan on an annual basis, and that will come before the IGB in March, and it's, which is set in meeting. But I think, as is set out in that report, we won't be able to continue to deliver services in the way that we're continuing to deliver them. And because that cost pressure is starting to impact on us. So what the senior leadership team will be doing is really carrying out a rigorous review of that third year of our delivery plan and making sure that we're focusing on those activities that are going to create capacity for us, so that we can continue to try and mitigate the impact on the critical services that we provide within the financial envelope that we've got. So a number of the activities that we add to the delivery plan next year will have that in mind in terms of trying to tackle the financial context we're operating in, not just to try and make sure we're in a balanced position for our budget next year, but to make sure we're setting the groundwork for future financial years 25, 26 onwards. So next year, I think we'll start to see a greater link between the strategic plan of the Integration Joint Board and the medium-term financial framework. Both will be kept in an annual review to make sure that they're in alignment.
Thanks, David. Any more questions, comments? Mark? You say?
Yeah. Thank you. Just a slightly, I suppose, just for information, really, you know, a lot of people will be looking at this, and we're all aware of the cost of living crisis that we're still going through, and folks out there have heard a lot about inflation. I'm just wondering, purely out of interest, could you tell us, how does inflation affect prescription prices? Do they tend to be fairly inelastic in that once prices go up, they take forever to restabilize, or do they tend to be fairly elastic in terms of how prices of other commodities change in line with the current financial conditions? Just to give people out there a little bit of understanding as to what the future might be and how that might be affected by other financial conditions more broadly.
Well, yeah, over the last couple of years, the increase in the prescriptions have only gone up by about 2.5%. So inflation is a lot higher than that. So our average cost is slightly lower than inflation. So that's one positive.
I can probably add to that as well, I think, from previous knowledge. If it's a branded medicine is launched at a price and that price never changes. If it's a generic medicine is a commodity, and inflation will affect that. It'll get affected by things like energy costs, because pharmaceutical manufacturing is energy intensive. It's affected by things like exchange rates. So the generic side will get affected by inflation.
Thank you very much. I think, as we've seen in the paper today, clearly the volume of prescription has gone up, but I thought that context in terms of the financials around it as well would be helpful. Thank you.
Mark, did you have a question?
It was around similar about the inflation, but I would also, you know, we talked about the numbers of prescriptions. It really is increasing, not quite exponentially, but it's certainly going up significantly. And yes, we can do something around looking at, you know, how people look at the prescriptions and looking at the medications, but how do we look at the prescribing patterns here, and where are we seeing the differences in a very short period of time, 2 years, you know? And the other slightly concerning bit is it would have been a 22% increase required to get us within budget, rather than, you know, yes, it's 10% increase, but we were already on a max spend. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think, you know, we really need to look at our primary care practitioners about who's prescribing and where we are with that. That's a huge project, but it's fairly significant, I think.
Yeah, the medicines group will have asked for information on this from the data provider. And what they said is they come up with some of these data, and hopefully it's going to be drilled down to like cluster level, so we can be able to see who's prescribing, where they're prescribing, and what they're prescribing. So we've requested that for the whole of Grampian.
Okay, thank you. I think absolutely got to get down to that detail. Unless we get down to that detail, well, this is just going to go out of control, I think.
Tracy, do you want to come in?
I mean, that's a work in progress, and we absolutely agree with you, Mark. And it's something that colleagues have been pushing to some extent. Getting that data is not fully within our control, but I think messaging from your, like yourself and the IGB today would be very helpful for us just to increase that momentum and that focus to make sure that we get the data we need to help us make the decisions.
If I could ask you, as a kind of follow-up to that, in terms of if you look at the graphs on page 84, so it's clear that volume is the big driver rather than cost. But within the average cost per item, do we know how much of that is, or sorry, I'm assuming the group will be looking at how much of that increase in cost, average cost per item, is increases in generic prices, and how much of it is GPs trading up from an older, less expensive medicine to a newer, more expensive one, which could well be more effective?
Yeah, I think they've got all that, because that's in this switch. I can't remember the name of the program it kind of does when they allocate prescription. So that is all there, yeah.
And they're also, you said, Paul, they're also looking at things like prescribing of stuff like paracetamol that you could.
They'll go through all the prescriptions to see what they're prescribing, yeah.
Okay. Personal view, a GP should not be prescribing paracetamol for someone like me. But if a GP is presented with a person who is using a food bank and for whom 50p might be a big deal, I don't have a problem with that, to be honest. That's just a personal view.
I think it comes back again to the data. We're needing the data to really understand how this demand is being triggered, where the demand is, and then that, I think that then helps to inform the approach that we take to try and mitigate the increase in cost to the IGB.
Any more comments, questions? Not seeing any hands. In which case, can we go to the recommendations on page 82? Are we happy to note the report, approve the budget requirements, and approve the use of the uncommitted reserves?
Agreed.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, I should have said, although we've kind of finished the item, looking at the data right across Scotland as a whole, I think the aggregate of IJBs across Scotland are forecast to be at, I think, 132 million overspent by the end of the year, and they've all got a big increase in their prescribing budget. So we're by no means not alone. It's a countrywide issue. Okay. All right. So moving on to 7.1. I said we'd finish after, or we'd break after 90 minutes, but we've only gone to 75 minutes, so we might be okay. Who is introducing this one? Vaccination Hub. Caroline.
Very much. So my name's Caroline Anderson. I'm the programme manager for the vaccination service, and I'm here with Stephen Main, who's the lead nurse. The last time we were here was in January, when we came to look at relocating from John Lewis to Bon Accord. Our report is quite extensive, so we thought we would just take 5 minutes to just give you a brief summary. So we got agreement from IGB and we moved in and opened on the 19th of June. And I think from that time, we took the opportunity to look at best use of resource with the space that we had. We looked at the partnership strategic plan, the NHS Grampian strategic plan, and the local outcome improvement plan, to look at how we could work towards the aims and objectives of those plans and focus on prevention, early intervention, and tackling health inequalities. We also wanted to ensure that we were making every opportunity count for when people come into the centre, and having our staff taking that opportunity to have those conversations and support people's health and well-being whilst they were being vaccinated. We also engaged with the public to see what else they would like to see within the centre, so that we were meeting local needs as well. During the winter programme, we had about 500 people coming through the centre, so we wanted to take the opportunity of there being a captive audience while they were waiting post-vaccine. And we reached out to various other services and third sector partner organisations to invite them to come in and present, provide information about their services. So at the moment, we've got about 33 partner organisations that are now working closely with us, coming into the centre. Within mental health, we've got Links practitioners that work out of the centre every day, and also Penumbra First Mental Health. We've also got Aberdeen in Recovery that come in every week. And we've got places like CFINE, SCARF and Home Energy Scotland that have come in to support people around the cost of living crisis. HPs and Sport Aberdeen have come in around safer mobility. We've done a lot of work around community engagement. So we've had Aberdeen City Libraries come in and Community Planning Aberdeen have come in around community engagement. We're doing a lot of work with the Dementia Advisor and the new Brain Health Centre that officially opened yesterday. So doing a lot of work with them to promote their services. Work with digital support. So we've got the tech team come in and Silver City Surfers. And we've also got the Well Connected team that come in as well. We did a lot of work around learning from other areas as well. So there's other community hubs, priority intervention hubs within Aberdeen City that we've learned from. So Get Active Northfield being one of them. And we've also with other organisations like Aberdeen Football Club Community Trust and looking at the work that they've been doing to try and mirror some of that great work. We're also working closely with the Accelerate programme in schools. So we've got Harlaw Academy coming in to do a project around patient feedback. And they're also going to be helping to support us do a bit of community engagement around promoting what's happening in the centre as well. And more recently, we opened up a community area so we've now got a cafe so that it supports people that are coming in for their vaccinations, particularly those that are coming in that are highlighting that they're socially isolated. They can sit down, have a chat with people, but also chat with other people. We've got a wellbeing wall that's got lots of information about everything that's going on in Aberdeen City as well. And we're also working with a local GP around social prescribing for moving forward. I'll come on to tell you a little bit about the positive impacts, but I'll hand over to Stephen, who will tell you about some of the clinical services that are working at the centre.
Thank you very much. And first of all, just wanted to pass my thanks to Caroline. I think from moving into the centre in June, it's really taken the kind of passion that Caroline has for developing a service that's really driven everything forward. It's a team effort, but it is always good when you've got someone with such passion and drive for it. So cheers. Speaking specifically about the clinical aspect, obviously the vaccination service in itself is delivering year-round vaccination programmes. At the moment, it's obviously the winter flu programme that we're delivering, but at other times of the year, there's going to be the Shingles extended cohort programme that we're going to have, a pneumococcal programme. There is JCVI guidance coming out for RSV delivery and the delivery of Versilla chickenpox vaccine that you probably saw BBC breaking news about the other week. So there's a huge number of vaccination programmes going on throughout the rest of the year, but we do take into account that there is less people coming through at those times, and that's the importance of bringing in the other services, bringing in CTAC, the Community Treatment and Care Centres, into our vaccination centre. And that allows people a bit of choice of a different location that they can attend for those procedures that they may have gone to their GP practice traditionally, or as I'm sure they've shared a good experience in the other CTAC clinics over the last week, Wiley. That also allows us to give our workforce alternative opportunities, other things to be learning, upskilling, career development, and gives us a hybrid workforce that are skilled in multiple aspects. A lot of our vaccination workforce have worked in a huge number of locations, a huge wealth of experience. So it's given them that opportunity to use some of those other skills rather than what you would say just a traditional sticking a needle in an arm. The other parts that we're looking to kind of bring in as part of CTAC over the next few while, we are looking to bring in B12 injections to be delivered by our team. And that's something that's been in quite demand over the last few while through our primary care colleagues. It's taken a wee bit of work, but we're almost there. And then the hope would be that we can go on again to utilise some of our immunisation team in those months where we have the more routine programmes coming through to also help delivery of that and really take the pressure off some of the practice team that are delivering those injections at the moment. As well as that, we've got other services, community respiratory team working with Chest, Heart, Stroke Scotland, who are embedded within the centre. There's work ongoing to try and get secondary care blood hubs coming into the centre, which would be a great opportunity, in the first that both primary care centre, as in CTAC, and secondary care blood hubs are working in the same location, and can hopefully gather some data and see how we can get things to work a lot more seamlessly for the patients that are coming in for a primary and a secondary care blood draw. We've been looking to bring in bloodborne virus screening as well with our public health team colleagues, and also Sandpiper Trust are also kind of keen to have a wee bit of work going on, and potentially being a location that there can be some training events doing emergency defibrillator and CPR training opportunities that can be based. And the Spina Bifida, Hydrocephalus Scotland, to name but a few. And there's a lot going on in the centre, really good buzz about it at the moment. That's all for me. I'll pass you back on Caroline just to go through.
So just a couple of the positive impacts that we've had. I think Stephen just mentioned there about the training. A lot of these third sector organisations and other partners organisations that are coming in, they're also having the opportunity to speak with staff, which gives them further information to help those MEOC conversations and be able to support signpost. We've had lots of great feedback about the fact that people can now come in and they can speak to a nurse about other issues, that it doesn't just have to be about their vaccination, and they're able to support them to help them manage their conditions. There's also opportunities to engage with people. So from the wider service, particularly with Community Planning Aberdeen coming in and being able to engage with that wider public and get that reach of people they might not have been able to reach otherwise. Lots of feedback around the centre having quite anonymity that you can come in. People don't know what you're coming in for. We're working with CFINE. We've got food bags. We're looking to extend that out so that people can pop in, pick up some leaflets, pick up a food parcel, and you'll leave and nobody will know that that's what you've been in to do. The fact that it's a central, accessible location, and we've also had good feedback from Bon Accord that they are seeing an increase in footfall coming in, not just to them but also to the city centre. And some really good feedback around the community space that we've opened. People being able to come in, have a chat. We're now saying you don't have to have an appointment, just come in, sit down, browse through the leaflets, have a chat with people. We've got lots of things that we're looking to set up in the new year with CFINE, planting groups, songwriting groups, various other things, and that's where that sort of social prescribing will come in as well. So that gives you a bit of a brief summary of the paper. Sorry we've taken a bit longer than usual, but I guess just to come back to the recommendations. So I hope some of you have had a bit of time to look at our impact report, because that really gives you a sort of insight into some of the feedback from our partner organisations, as well as some of the people that are visiting the centre. And we are looking for approval for our approach to expand the vaccination centre to a priority intervention hub model. We'd also like to rename the centre just to take account of the fact that it's not just vaccinations. We did do a bit of public consultation, and based on that feedback, the preferred option was Aberdeen City Vaccination and Wellbeing Hub. We're looking for approval to extend the lease for a further year, and really just to highlight that we do at the moment require to come back yearly, and in terms of sustainability, that is really due to the level of Scottish Government funding, and based on the changing programme within vaccination. So the fact that we will have additional programmes this year, but they'll also be reviewing the spring booster and the extended flu programme. So we will require to come back sort of on a yearly basis around that. Thank you very much. And any questions?
Oh, I should have said at the start, if you've got any questions for Caroline or Stephen, can you not avoid straying into the exempt appendix? You're saying?
Thank you very much. Firstly, thank you for an excellent paper. It was really well written. I think it's self-evident from the impact statements in the paper. It's clearly having a positive effect on our city and on everyone that's using the place. I think you said 33 partner organisations so far that you've engaged with. I think that is a clear demonstration of the benefits that partnership working can bring. So can I firstly thank yourselves and everyone that's been involved in the vaccination and wellbeing centre for all the work that you've done. It's a real power of good. I think that will do for the city. As people get used to accessing the place, get used to its services, as the amount of services and the support that people can receive grows. Given what we've heard today about looking to extend the lease for a year without straying into the exempt appendix, John, people will inevitably ask the question, what happens after a year? So I'm just going to ask, what is your thinking in terms of the evaluation that you will do into this, and also the thought processes for what happens when we get to 2025? I'm thinking particularly in regard to accessibility. These are the kinds of places when people learn how to use them and people find their way to them. It does breed some anxiety if they basically feel that there could be a risk after a year that the arrangements will change. And I'm just wondering if you could give us some narrative around that, please.
So I guess our hope is that the funding does continue to be stable, and we'll continue to work with our partner colleagues to extend the centre until we know otherwise. We are involved in a premises review group, so there is a wider group looking at the premises as part of the savings that require to be made across the partnership. So we continue to be involved in that. We do have other vaccination centres at Bridge Dawn and Airy Hall, and the work that we've done in the city centre will also look this year to try and expand that out to some of our smaller areas as well as working across some of the other priority intervention hubs to try and expand them as well, so that we can try and increase that across the rest of the city. I guess it's a little bit unknown at the moment as how that, the future financial position will be, but we'll continue to work closely with our partners. I don't know if anybody else wants to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I think that it's the centre, we've got Scottish Government feedback. What Caroline didn't say was that the centre is unique in Scotland. It's not for me to say it's the best in Scotland. The Scottish Government said it is unique in a Scottish context, and it's significantly like an exemplar of an anchor organisation, both Aberdeen City Council and NHS Grampian. So I think really subject to the board's decision and as it makes it, the case and the work and the preparation to convince everybody starts today, subject to IGB review today. And I think what you've heard today is a really strong case that already potentially service could make out of. It can have 33 new partners in a year. If Caroline and her team in another year's time, that'll be 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever. But I think there is an element that we have to be responsible working with Paul and doing all the things we've got to do sensibly with Paul. But I and we would be very confident when we come back that we have a really strong case to continue what we're doing there. I think one of the challenges that appropriately people could make at the centre would be, what else can you do there? What other activity can we shift? Particularly clinical activity. And I'm often speaking to Steve and the team, what other things can we potentially do to make it an absolutely rock certain case that it's making a big impact across the wider system. So I'm very confident saying, well, obviously we're not asking for that 2-year funding today, but I'd be very confident what you'll see from Caroline and Stephen is an absolutely rock solid case to continue that. And perhaps the next time we come back, we won't be asking for a 1-year extension. Perhaps we're asking for longer than that, but they can kick it under the table afterwards, but that would be our hope.
Thank you very much, and thanks again to yourselves and the wider team as well.
Sandra, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so the financial situation is something that we have pressures across all of the health and social care partnerships as well as NHS Grampian. I think the vaccination centre and the work that's being done there shows what can happen when we start to link different government policies and different strategic agendas together. I think that's the importance of this one. This is not, if we look at this as a vaccination centre in its own right and a singularity, it may well be that the cost does not outweigh, says, well, that's too expensive to have city centre. If we then start to look at our population health agenda, if we look at our CTAC agenda, if we start to look at the different things about embedding firmly in our communities and accessibility for people and all of that, and then look at our wider impacts, that's the decision the IGB will need to make this year, but also will need to continue to make in a different year. I was highlighted earlier that one of the key things as budget pressures move forward, as did Fraser, that we will have to make some really difficult decisions. I think what's been shown here and what the IGB are striving towards is making sure that we embed our services so that we get the multiple benefits of a service, and what we're not doing is investing in one thing here and a CTAC over there, then CFINE over there, but how can we collaborate, coordinate and really embed our situations in our communities, so that when the funding question is, we're not talking about a vaccination centre, we're talking about an impact on our community that is impacting on population health. And I think that will be a difficult decision for us moving forward, but hopefully the modelling that's been suggested, if we can multiply that up, actually there may well be savings in other areas as we can start to coalesce in different areas. So it doesn't give you a cue, but that's the intent, is to ensure that we can align those to, so we can make savings to allow doing prosperous things like this.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the steps on making every opportunity count, that's very, very impressive. So we've got some hands. Alison Murray, I think, had a hand up first.
Thank you. Yes, it was. It sounds like a brilliant sort of scheme to have all these services there, but I think we need to be careful about accessibility, and asking people who've accessed it if it's accessible to them is perhaps not the right people to ask. And it's certainly from a carer's perspective, it is quite a sort of trek into town, often for me anyway, and I'm sure from people from the more distant parts of Aberdeen, it can be a bit of a trip. And particularly if you've got people you have to care for and you have to leave behind. And as I mentioned before about the need for being able to have people home visits. But actually, I think we mustn't overlook the importance of having smaller centres around the city as well. I had to try and rearrange a vaccine recently where my son, who's vulnerable, I'm his carer, was missed at school and nobody told me. And quite how that happened, I'm not sure. But eventually I went to the pop-up centre with him at King's Wells, and they were lovely, and they were sort of saying, well, the people who go there would never have gone to Bunnacord. They would never have made that effort to go into town, and but also that they spent more time with people there because they had to sort of explain and reassure them, people in the communities. I think that's important, that that people who are perhaps less certain are less likely to make the trip into town if it is quite a trip for them, and who perhaps have queries before they want to. They're less committed to the trip, so they're less committed to going there. And so I do think we do need to have those services still provided elsewhere in the city. Certainly we have been using Airy Hall after a poor experience at John Lewis's. The other aspect I just wanted to raise is I noticed under protected characteristics of disability in a couple of places in the report, it really only considers wheelchair accessibility. Protected, when we're talking about disability, we have to things like the need for hearing loops or lighting or or signage for people with visual problems or actually literacy problems. And so disability, we have to broaden our consideration away from just wheelchair accessibility, though important that is. We do need to consider other forms of accessibility as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Let's come in. So with regards to our smaller clinics, so at Airy Hall and Bridge of Dawn, you know, they will continue, and then we are looking to continue our pop-up clinics. So that clinic at Kings Wells was part of our team that went out there. And with them having that MEOC training, you know, they'll take that information with them and be able to support people out in the local communities as well. So we do continue and will continue to do that as part of our yearly programmes. And with the disabilities, absolutely. I mean, these are things that we've considered and perhaps just haven't quite put into the report. So we can make sure that for next time we've got that information.
Thank you.
Can I just add in there, obviously, just, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Perfect. Just in regard to housebound visits as well, we've got a substantial number of people on our housebound list that the team also go out and provide vaccinations in home for those. We've got a really, how to put it, Kuthi, I think that would probably be the nicest word. A really good team that go out and really show a lovely kind of rounded care for those living at home, delivering the vaccination in their own environment for those that are unable to come in. And it's something we're continually reviewing the service of that.
Thanks. Sandy, did you want to come in on?
Just added to one of the points, and in terms of improving the accessibility, there's a regular conversation that Caroline and I'll have about improvements and ideas that she wishes to make. And part of my answer is sometimes we don't know we're going to be here beyond X, so let's not do that until we know we're going to be here in a longer period. So Caroline and Stephen have got a list of things they'd like to improve, but part of that is based on we're not going to spend X, we're not going to be here subject to IGB approval. You know? So I'm taking the point on about other accessibility. We will improve if we are still there, if you like, in some of the accessibility.
Thanks, Sandy. I've got some more hands. I'm conscious I've gone over the 90 minutes, but as we're kind of almost towards the end of the item, I think we're okay to continue if folk are happy with that. I think Martin had that next hand.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I found this a very exciting report, one that lifts the spirits. I think that there's been a great deal of creative energy has gone into producing this model of joint working. It really is so reassuring and refreshing. It's a very impressive model that brings together so many partners from such a wide variety of backgrounds and contexts. So we've got Penumbra, we've got the fire service, libraries, and so forth. And I think that the buy-in from these various organisations demonstrates that there is a real willingness to work together for health and well-being, because professionals recognise the advantage of collaborating. So I think that this hub is providing a really positive and welcome opportunity for everyone to work together and to deliver services to patients in an even better way. There'll be more contacts, more conversations with patients. So I think that's really excellent. It's a really good example of working together. There's mention in the report of following and fulfilling community planning outcomes, and I just wondered. I mean, we're looking at a year-by-year plan for this hub. So community planning outcomes that will help to support and therefore sustain the model going forward. But will there be other performance monitoring that will help, that will be gathered in order to demonstrate the value of this hub, and therefore also support cases for funding, for continuing, and so forth. I'm thinking, for example, of outcomes relating to patient well-being and so forth.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, obviously we've worked quite quickly. I mean, we moved in June, and we've worked quite quickly to look at some of the strategic aims and the LOIP outcomes as a way of what we're going to bring into the centre. And I guess what we now need to look at is a bit longer term outcome measures. So that's certainly something that we'll take on board, and we'll work with our senior leadership team around those.
Okay, thanks very much. I mean, I suspect there's this hub carries some very high expectations, but I'm quite convinced that through ongoing practice it will demonstrate improvements in working together. And also I wanted to ask about that point about transferring this model elsewhere. Is it a transferable model? Could you, for example, find somewhere in the south of the city where this could be set up?
So, and I might also have Grace come in here as well. So a lot of work that's been done by the transformation team at the moment has been looking at the priority intervention hub model across Aberdeen. So Grace has been working on the priority intervention hub at Northfield. We've got the Grey Hope Centre in Torry. We've got.
Just looking at me because you
Yes.
can't remember all. So it is that this is the plan, is that we move to that priority intervention model. What the learnings that we've had both from Northfield and at ACVC or the vaccination centre, that we kind of expand that into the rooms that we have available at Tillydrome Community Hub, at Torry or Grey Hope Community Hub as well, and the work that's already going on with Healthy Youth. So then that becomes like our priority intervention hub model. So then we're reaching every community.
Okay. I think, is that okay, Martin? I think Jamie Donaldson's hand was next.
Yeah,
Jamie?
cheers. Thanks very much, Chair. Hi, Caroline. Long time no see. Yeah, just picking up on what Martin was saying previously, the difference in moving from John Lewis into the centre is chalk and cheese. I recently did a health and safety inspection there, and I couldn't believe the hustle and bustle that was going on. Normally when you walk into a vaccination centre, everybody's stuck on an iPhone and not talking, looking down at their feet. The fear of getting another rejection in their arm or whatever, but this place was like a hustle and bustle. It was totally different. I was quite taken aback actually about the amount of stuff that was offering to our citizens of Aberdeen across the whole health and social care partnership. So I think you need to be commended along with your staff for that, Caroline, of how far you've come within a short time, and hopefully you can get the funding to keep going and roll this out across Scotland, not only the city. Cheers, thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Okay, and then I think I've got Phil Mackey.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, John. Just two comments which amplify things which have gone before. One, you shouldn't be surprised I'm going to say. But first, I think Sandra's point about this is adding value to the preventative and early intervention agendas across the IJB is really important here. We really can't see these as being financial challenges now, as investments in releasing potential pressure on our future financial challenges. And I think that's a mindset issue that I think I hope I can bring to the IJB over time. The second point is we've discussed evaluation, but I think as I discussed before, it's for the IJB to have a sense of what it would expect of an evaluation. I think there's been some useful comments raised in this meeting of the types of areas that people would want to see. But ultimately, I think it's on us as an IJB to be clear on our expectation, to communicate that to the team who are going to undertake the evaluation, so that when they bring a report back, it's a report which answers our questions as queries, as well as other stakeholders within that evaluation.
Thanks, Dolly. That's a really good point. Do you want to pick it up?
Yes, that'd be great. I mean, I guess we've not asked, so I don't know whether that's something that you would provide to us at a later date. About what
I'm
you
happy
would
to have that conversation with you, Roz.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful if a kind of small group of us got together and kind of brainstormed what we'd like to see. Okay. Not seeing any more hands. Anyone else got any comments, questions they'd like to ask? Nope. Okay. In which case, can we go to the recommendations on page 98? Are we happy to approve?
Agreed.
Thanks. And that now concludes the public section of the meeting. The only item we've got left is the exempt appendix. But if members of the press and public could leave, because